Hi everyone, and welcome back to more Innatism versus Empiricism. And what we're really looking at today for the third video in a row is we're discussing where our knowledge comes from and whether we can actually have any innate knowledge. Now, last time we discussed Plato and we outlined Plato's thoughts on the fact that on the belief that we can have knowledge because our souls resided in a noumenal realm before we existed in this phenomenal realm. So we can recollect knowledge. We have knowledge inside us that we can recall when we need to. And then last time we were looking at a debate between John Locke, remember him, and Leibniz. And this is actually a debate that sort of features in your anthology. And we had John Locke putting forward the idea that knowledge is all through experience, and his claim that when we're born we are a tabula rasa. And then we have Leibniz, who said that yes, okay, experiences do awaken something that is already shaped within us, and he talked about the marble analogy. So today we're going to be carrying on more on the empiricist side, and we are going to be looking again at the sorts of ideas that John Locke came up with, but we're going to look at somebody who developed and expanded on Locke, and and that is the great David Hume. Now, David Hume is someone that we really can't get away from in our course. He is everywhere. He is all over the place. And mainly we use him to criticize the ideas of others. But here today, he's going to put forward his views on knowledge. He is an empiricist. So yeah, you need to be really careful to record notes on how he thinks we come to knowledge. So things like his copy principle, and also on simple and complex ideas. So really make very clear notes today. David. Hello. Nice to join the debate at last. You will discover that I say a lot in most of the debates that you study within your A-level. In fact, you could say that I am the most prominent and the most important thinker you will study. Most of the time I'm critical about the ideas of others, but today I hope to bring something of my own to the debate on knowledge. Let me tell you about what impresses me. Clarity. I have seen us reach clarity and made huge progress in the sciences. I have seen what Isaac Newton has done by transforming science by identifying some of the most basic and fundamental laws of the universe. Now, I see myself as the Newton of philosophy. I want to clarify and drill down into the fundamentals of philosophy. I want to look properly at metaphysics, the basic ideas of knowledge, existence and so on in a scientific way. Like my friend John Locke, I am an empiricist. So I want evidence for my claims. I am not a supporter of suggesting solutions that cannot be known. This is why I reject the idea of God and of a morality that implies duties that can really be known. I deal with what we can prove. We are empiricists. So what do I know about this idea of innate knowledge versus a tabula rasa? Well, it won't come as a surprise to hear that I am with John and support the idea that all of our knowledge comes through experience. Although that's not to say that I'm entirely happy with the way John explained how we come to knowledge. Oh, I see. What exactly do you take issue with? Well, firstly, I think that your talk of coming to knowledge through ideas is confusing. You talk about us having sensations through the senses, and then us making sense of them through reflection, the mind. In a way, with your filing cabinet, I agree with Leibniz, as I think this sounds a little bit like an innate ability for knowledge. Oh, go on then. Let's hear what you've got to say. Well, I'm proposing the following. We come to knowledge through perceptions. All knowledge is a perception, but I'm going to show you that perception can be divided. Now, on the one hand, these perceptions are impressions. Now, I mean by this that there are colours and sounds. These are tastes. I'm going to describe them as vivid and lively. They have a forcefulness about them. The sweetness of a ripe strawberry, the brightness of yellow. On the other hand, we have ideas. Now, ideas are different. This is our thinking about impressions, thinking about these sounds and colours and tastes. These are weaker, they are fainter. Ideas I describe as copies of our impressions. They are less distinct. This accounts for our memories, our imaginations. And ideas are different again, as we're more likely to come to error or make mistakes with ideas than we are with impressions. At home, I'm hoping that you have these differences noted. Impressions are vivid, lively, the original, less prone to error, whereas ideas are fainter, less distinct, copies of impressions, and are more prone to error. But John, do you see what I'm clear on and you are not? That all ideas are perceptions. All knowledge comes to us as an impression and remains an impression in the sense that it is something we have taken directly from experience. I am avoiding this idea of John's filing system or any internal element coming to knowledge. I think really, John, this is what you believe too. You just didn't explain it as well as me. Oh. And just to throw them on in there to back up my claims, again, let me remind you of my copy principle. I argue that the ideas we acquire in the mind are copies of our impressions. They are like pictures. Ideas are like pictures, so that when we experience an impression, we acquire a copy of it in the mind. The images in our minds are not as vivid or detailed. For example, when you look at a tree, you will see a very detailed image with many different shapes, colours and textures. The image in our mind will copy this, but will be less distinct. So if we tried to draw the tree from memory, from an idea, it would be less precise. Oh, and another argument I put forward for my approach is that of the blind man. A blind man who is unable to gain an impression of colour has no knowledge of colour. Therefore, John and everyone out there, all knowledge comes through perception and our experiences. That's a good one. That's very, very good. But how do you explain our knowledge of complex concepts like God? To answer that, I need to explain my theory of simple and complex ideas. And I know, John, that you agree with me on this and have written something very similar. Okay, all of our impressions and ideas, however complex they are just collections of simple concepts which are gained from our impressions. Let me explain. You have the concept of hot, and this has come to you through an impression of of the heat of the sun through a window onto your face. This is a simple concept or bit of knowledge, as it is singular, one thing. How is it then, say thinkers like Descartes, that we can have such complex concepts, ideas of God and such as you've asked? And my answer is this: God or a unicorn are complex concepts which are entirely made up of simple concepts which we gain through impressions. So we put together a horse, a narwhal's spiraled horn, and a bird's wings together, all simplex concepts, to construct a more complex one. The very complex idea of God is made by exaggerating abilities we see in humans, such as their intelligence and wisdom. All knowledge, I say, or we say, all knowledge can be explained perfectly well in this way. Between us, John, I think we've made a very good case for the argument that experience is all we need for knowledge. Knowledge is a posteriori.